Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Talking Locs podcast with Locitude. This is the Everyday People with Locs series, and I am your host, Ade Balogun. This episode is produced by Savage Media. Today, we'll be having a very interesting and what may be deemed as a somewhat controversial discussion on Locs and Feminism. Our guest, Nelly and I, will try to break down the nuances of what the movement really means in the context of Nigeria, and also explore what life is like for a lockhead feminist. Nelly is a broadcast journalist, a fact checker, writer and media consultant, and one person who challenges me to think through conversing. I personally have much respect for her, and without further ado, let's get right into it. Hi Nelly, welcome to Everyday People with Locs. This is the Talking Locs with Locitude podcast, and I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. So Nelly, can you please start by introducing yourself?
My name is Nelly. I'm a broadcast journalist and a fact checker and a little of so many things in between. But I really like to keep it to broadcast journalist because that's the core of my being. And until recently, I dabbled into fact checking, and I'm glad that I did because it somehow makes me feel elevated as a broadcaster. I've worked on radio, television, and that's basically it.
Wow.
So that's really all I am. It's not very impressive when I say it, right?
No, it is. Like, I have a lot of questions that I feel like I hope we would be able to talk about some hair in this whole episode that we've planned today, because I'm so excited to speak to you. We usually have great conversations, and unlike the previous episodes we've recorded, I haven't prepared questions for you. So I'm hoping the conversation will flow.
I'm glad you haven't.
And we would explore, some meaning to the things that we think. One of the things I want to start with is, let's talk about hair for 1 second, because I feel like I might not be able to keep it completely on topic. How long have you had your locks?
Oh, I've lost count. I mean, you know that I've lost count. The last time I kept count, my hair was 10 years old. Sometimes I tell people 10, sometimes 11. I think it's between 11 and 12, I'm thinking now,
Can you remember what year you started?
Yeah, I think my hair is a year older than yours, I think. Because when we knew how how old it was, we used to talk about it.
Being a year apart, okay.
So that means when I met you, and a bit older.
That means that you are possibly 12 going on 13, because I'm 11 going on 12.
Absolutely, then.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
what we think.
That's a pretty long time to have had locks. Before I short this conversation, wow, I'm surprising myself. Maybe I should take notes as I'm talking. I shouldn't Larry King this one, because I feel slightly intimidated. I'm talking to not just a broadcaster, but Nelly. And Nelly, I hope that I'm able to match. I'm able to give you a very good conversation today.
I would leave this conversation with my self-esteem intact, in a very comfortable and safe place.
I do hope so.
You've already started on a very good footing, so I'll just sit back and enjoy being praised so much.
Okay, we're going to be talking about feminism, and usually in these topics with everyday people with locks, I feel that the essence is to kind of show the world and people who kind of stereotype people generally that people are individuals, and in an individual there are different things. So an individual is a feminist, a mother, a corporate person, an entrepreneur. An individual can be anything at all. So let's just start by asking, do you consider yourself a feminist?
Yes, but I never used to say yes to that question. I never used to, and I mean as recently as 3 years ago, my last time on radio, I think I finally accepted being called a feminist just towards the end by the middle of 2018. And the reason was because I came to a realization of who I am. let me answer this question, connecting it with the question, the comment you made. That's a long time to wear locks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps that will help to bring to how I've accepted being called a feminist. And it had nothing to do with shame, but more dependent on definition, right? So I had my hair straight for as long as I've known. I've always liked my natural hair, but no particular affiliation. I've never really been the kind of person that would say my natural hair defined me, or even that locks define me, to be honest. So I might not be the perfect lock head. I always say that. But one day I was in the salon trying to wear my natural hair as I've always done. So I'll experiment with tongs and crimps and all those things. Just something to keep my hair stylish and still natural. And one day, using this hot iron, the lady chopped off a chunk of my hair, and it was gone. So I looked at that space in the middle of my hair, and I decided I'm done with this. I'm done with stretching my hair, burning my hair. I'm exhausted with it, so I'm just going to wear my hair naturally, which I did for a while. And then a friend of mine who was from Trinidad and Tobago said, you're going to look really nice on locks. And I'm like, yes, please. And that's how my lock journey began. But I'm a very dedicated person, and I know I liked wearing locks. I know I got attached to wearing locks. I liked the identity it gave me, which meant some people look at me and they conclude on who I am by my hair. It's gotten so much that in 12 years now, I've gone from ridiculous, unserious, renegade to sexy. All that definition of the locks on me. I don't know if I remove these locks, and this is something a close friend said to me, that when you take these locks off your head, I wonder if anyone will recognize you. And this is a person who knew me before I started wearing locks. I realized that some people I've known in my life have never known me without locks, because they met me in the space of 10 to 12 years. Now this journey is the same thing for me for feminism. I've always known who I am. I've always known what I want. I've always known, or I thought I knew how to get it, right? And that's a big question I'm beginning to answer now. I thought I knew how to get it, but now I don't think what I thought I knew is sufficient enough for me now. But early in life, I knew how to get it. I knew what I wanted. I knew I did not want to be married. I knew what I wanted. There were certain things I knew. I also grew up. My upbringing was a lot more feminist. I'm not exactly from my mom per se, because my mom is not particularly a feminist, but my dad too. And I wouldn't even say he was feminist. I think he just believed in giving an individual what an individual deserved, and that was my idea of existing. So when I started hearing about feminism, I thought that was what I knew, which is, equality, equity, being the choice to be who I am. But I never had to make that choice. I grew up in a home where I was who I am for just being who I am. There was no need to define that as an agenda or something groundbreaking. It was just the way I grew up. I knew who I was. I had a voice. No one silenced it. No one asked me to be anything other than I wanted to be. From the age of 9, I made a choice where I wanted to go to school. So I was allowed choices and I made them. So I never really imagined feminism to be anything. And when I started to hear about social feminism, and I'm using that term exactly to define the feminism people tweet about, the feminism people brag about, the feminism people like to claim, right? And I never liked it. It irritated me. I never thought feminism was us against them. Let's grab our pitchforks and burn the men, because I grew up with 4 brothers, and I never felt like, even when I've been in environments where I've been sexually harassed by men, I was able to compartmentalize which men did that and which didn't, right? So it's so for me, it never was about choosing a side, but finally, as I said, a couple of years ago, or 3 to 4 years ago, I came to that realization that you have to say what it is, because that's what you are. Own it and properly define it, because then you're defining it for people just like you, who are trying to reject what they already are just because the definition is getting lost in a wave of noise. So I am a feminist, and I own it because I have always been a feminist. I was raised a feminist by people who were not feminists themselves. the irony, right? I
Yeah.
was raised to a feminist
No,
by people who didn't even know what feminism, didn't care for what feminism was, So yeah, that's how I've come to it, to that realization, and I like how I came to it because I'm not confused by it at all.
Okay, so I'm really, really enjoying this conversation because I can identify with it in a couple of ways. When you said that people normally already give you an identity just because of your hair, they make assumptions of who you are and what you might not be and what you might be. Reminds me of something that happened to me in Lagos traffic a few years ago. You know how we drive in Lagos, like, we have no destination. And this guy tried to cut in front of me, and I kind of maneuvered and I got ahead of him. And, traffic moved a bit and they were beside me and they looked into the car and we were going to do the normal thing of exchanging words. And he looks and he says, na dada, leave am, she dey craze. So actually I started laughing because I was like, okay, wow, I'm actually not a crazy person. I hate confrontation. I literally would probably back down if they started to make too much noise. But I like that they think that I'm crazy because I have this hair. So I really identify with that. But now I also struggle myself. Unlike you, I kind of grew up as an only child of my mother. So I didn't have to be compared to anybody. So I never felt the need to even compete with anybody. So I do not have the us against them mentality, which seems like what social feminism is all about. But what does feminism really mean? What are we really talking about? What does it really mean to be a feminist?
I think for me, and just like I said in my TED talk, I would never assume myself to be a scholar of the movement, right? I would read up on anything I want to read up on, and I would like to have this conversation with women that have fought for this and studied this in school and written theses about it. But for me, feminism is the ability to be. That's the definition. The ability to be, to exist. No excuses, no reasons why, no apologies, no doubts. And somebody could say, but that's what every human being is. Every human being desires the ability to be without doubts, apologies, excuses. But then I'll say to that person, absolutely. That's exactly what feminism is. So if you have an argument against feminism, you're saying that I don't have a right to just be these things as a woman. In essence, my desire for equity and equality and an ability to make choices, my desire to exist as me without giving you a reason why I'm choosing to exist as me is feminism. In essence, and I know I'm saying in essence over and over and again, but I think it's necessary for me to keep saying it because all I believe feminism is an ability for women to be those exact things men have a right to be, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the same pedestal as men have a choice to be. So if I have to make a decision, and that decision is weighed on a scale against that of men, then I have a battle to fight. But if there was never a scale, because if I desire a thing or I want a thing and a man wants it too, and we are measured on the same pedestal, on the same choices, then maybe I have nothing to worry about. But the second flip of it is this. If two men, for instance, stood here, and the reason I'm going through these analogies because I know Nigerians are going to listen to this podcast, and I'm saying it this way because of a Nigerian audience, right? And an African perhaps. Now, if two men are being maybe measured for a role or for sports or for whatever it is, I do believe these men will be measured on merit, they'll be measured on strength, they'll be measured on character, they'll be measured on certain things where one man could fall short of the other, right?
Yeah.
And if one man is thoroughly disadvantaged, maybe for economic reasons, one is poorer than the other, these are measures that will be looked at for strictly economic reasons, strictly political reasons. Nobody's going to look at it on a gender reason. There will be no gender bias. Now, if a woman, subtract one of those men and replace a woman there, or put a woman in between those two men, gender bias now skews the rest of these parameters now. So no one is looking at an economic parameter of poverty. Nobody's looking at maybe a political parameter of maybe disenfranchising one's group over the other group. Nobody's looking at these things. It suddenly becomes gender now. The two men suddenly feel elevated in their masculinity as opposed to that woman. Now, for me, as I said before, feminism is an ability to be. The choice of being without an excuse, without defending it, and none of that. And for me, that's what it is. And every moment that I identify where someone has been, where a woman has to fight for her ability to just be, then that's a battle feminism has to fight every day. And if someone considers feminism an art of war because of that simple thing, then I guess, yes, we are at war.
I hear you. And being a Nigerian woman who grew up in Nigeria, a lot of things are interesting to identify with because, like I said, I personally am not a confrontational person. I do not like conflict. I run away from it. It's only becoming older that I actually now kind of face conflict in the face. So I don't want to feel like I need to fight for my rights. At the same time, I don't want to be cheated out of anything that is my rights, and unfortunately, we experience these things in different forms and shapes. You're supposed to be responsible when you have a man behind you. I remember trying to get a space for the Locitude salon, and this was 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago in a bit. And I had to literally go and get myself a fake engagement ring and a proper ring and pretend like I was a married woman and have conversations with the landlord where I was saying, or with the agents, where I would say things like, oh, I would show my husband the pictures. If my husband likes it, then I will call you back. Of course, I go home and I am my husband and I, have to...
How did you feel?
I felt defeated. I felt horrible. It made me sick to my stomach that I was a responsible person who had the funds to acquire a space for my business, but yet I could not gain or gather respect until I became a married woman. Did
it take a little bit away from the pleasure of just being a business owner?
Of course.
A young female business owner. Did it take a little bit away from the pleasure?
I told you were going to become the host and I'll become the guest on this show. But yes. No, but yes, it
salon.
did.
Remember, this is how we do it in the salon.
No, it did. And it was really painful because it took me a moment to even realize what was going on. I'd already missed out on like 3 good spaces before. I didn't know what the link was. The agents were standing me up. Immediately, I mentioned that I had a husband. I became from this girl, like my status changed from this girl to madam. Until tomorrow when the agent sees me, he asks me, how is Oga, how are the kids? And I'm like, yeah, they're fine. But it makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me feel like, why do I have to be something else? And I think as women, we can continually pick on 1,001 stories. And in sometimes we're so used to this thing that we don't even know when it's being done.
I think for me, it happened to me, but it was unnecessary on my part. My part was just for fear, because I had looked for an apartment so much, and I was trying to get this just a 3-bedroom apartment. Like, it's not like it's even grand, right? And I had looked for an apartment over and over and over. And some people ask me, "Are you single? Are you married?" Some would tell me, "Let me get you a mini flat if you're going to. If you're single, what do you need 3 bedrooms for?" So when I was applying for this place, I just wrote that I was engaged. There was no need. It turns out that the lawyer, the landlord, is actually quite open-minded. He did not care. But I just, I did not want to lose another apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did. But what I wanted to ask you though was, if you would rather, you don't want a confrontational environment, but at the same time you have to fight for some things that are yours. What does feminism then mean to you?
Okay. Now you're turning this thing back on its head because you're the feminist on the show.
After this, I go back to being a guest. I'm curious. I realize I've never really asked you that question in all the years of conversation.
From my perspective of things, I expect to be treated equally. And this is partly because I feel that I bring my equal strength to the table. So I don't see any reason why I should not be treated unequally. So just with the example that I gave with the looking for a studio, if a man my age came with the same money I had, he would not have needed to be married, maybe, I don't know for sure, to be able to get the apartment or garner respect from the agents that we were working with. So in my own opinion, for a very long time, I didn't get it because I felt like I had grown up in environments that did not make me see that my society treated me a little bit differently from the men. So like I said, growing up as an only child, I did not have maybe one brother at home that I was being compared to. So I never got it. By the time I got into university, I went to Command Secondary School, Ikpaja. Wow, I've not said that in a very long time.
I went to Command Secondary School, Abakaliki.
Okay, perfect. Maybe these things maybe there's a connection in all these things. But you do know Abakaliki is one of the tougher commands to have gone to. But you do know that you are not treated differently. If you are going to be rolling on the floor and doing corporal punishments, you are going to do the corporal punishments. If the boys are cutting grass, you are cutting the grass. There was no preferential treatment. So I did not see that.
Absolutely.
Nobody treated me differently because I was a girl. So in secondary school, I did not see it. By the time I got to university, I happened to study architecture, which is a male-dominated course. So we were only a few ladies in our set. And looking back, only in hindsight did I realize some of the things that were happening that shouldn't have happened. Like I get a good grade on a course, and my male classmates would tell me things like, "Oh, can't you remember when you were doing your jury? You confused the lecturer with your boobs and your ass. When she bent down to say, 'This is my toilet,' the guy got confused and he gave her an A." You know, it was a joke. But looking back, I'm like, no, I spent my sleepless nights in the studio as well. I worked for my grade. Why is my grade being belittled because it's a good grade? You know, so that was the first time I kind of started to experience it. But all of it was very, very subconscious. I didn't even know what was going on. And then moving on into actual practice, fortunately for me, the firm I practiced with did not have any gender disparity, or what's the word now? You couldn't even, like, if you're going to climb the 7-story building, you are climbing that step. It doesn't matter what you are. If you like, be a man, woman, animal. As long as you work for the company, you get the job done, you know. So I did not feel cheated. I didn't feel like I was being paid, or I wasn't paid less than my male counterparts. The system of getting bonuses were fair and transparent. So all of that was me being fortunate and not being oppressed by the system. But living the real world, realizing in future that, man, you need a man to be anything in our society, became very painful to me. But now I'm turning back the question to you. For those of us who are not confrontational and know that we deserve equality, not just because we are women and we just deserve it, but because we also bring our fair share to the table. If I'm doing the work, if I'm making the money, why wouldn't I be treated as such? Why wouldn't I be given the same respect? Is it a case of fighting or taking? Are we supposed to fight for this, or do we just take what belongs to us?
That's interesting. You know, I'm not very good at giving yes or no answers because I have to think through the nuances of everything I say. And this is particularly nuanced to me in the sense, let me start by saying, I am not confrontational. I will confront if it's coming to me, but I'll rather not confront, but I am very pumped for confrontation. If that's what's coming my way, very pumped, and I'll enjoy it. But I would rather not do that, right? Mm-hmm. But I won't shy away from one. Mm-hmm. The thing is, taking or fighting or even I think it's stressful for anybody's mental health to always feel like you have to constantly grab or fight, or rather than just sail through the world. I think the stress and the stressors that it triggers, it's really unhealthy for women, you know, because it depends on the society and how much that society aims towards some kind of equality. Then you will tell yourself, then you know where you stand. If I lived in Norway or Switzerland or Sweden, or countries that are trying their best to have some sort of a large a higher degree of equity and equality, I probably would be less anxious and stressed about my existence as I am living in a country like Nigeria. You and I went to technically the same kind of secondary school, just different locations. And while we're kids and teenagers, you never really notice. But the question then is, Command Secondary School is a paramilitary school, so it's really funded and overseen by the Nigerian military. How have I never seen in my lifetime a female military general, a female commander or commandant even, unless they're now. In my time, I never saw a female commandant. I never saw, until today, our heads of military, there is no female, and I don't think there's ever been a female. So at some point, when we start to achieve womanhood, feminism is the gift we get. Do you see, Adi? Are you seeing where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
All through life, when you're unthreatening, when you're just a flat-chested human being, when the only difference between you and the boy in your class is probably, I don't know, maybe nothing.
Almost nothing, because you all wear your hair short.
Yeah, you wear your hair short. You probably haven't seen your period. For me, I never saw mine I never menstruated until I was way into, I was about to get out, right? Of secondary school. So, and even when that happens, you are disciplined in such a way that you never truly own, that part of you as a gender definition or as a sexual thing until you're way out of it for your mother to deal with, right? So it is when we actually start to be called women, when you actually start to be identified by the attributes that make you a woman that you should be proud of. That's when feminism comes. Feminism wants to take you right back. I'm sorry, not feminism. Forgive me. That's when the gender bias comes, right? Yeah. That's when the gender bias comes. That's when the masculine world wants to take you back to that unthreatening side of you. So if we're talking about it taking or grabbing or fighting, the war is not with me. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not the offending party here. I'm not the antagonist. The war is not with me. It's with you. It's with the person to whom the atmosphere changes when I walk in, when I assert myself. The war is with you, who constantly are in a battle to own yourself when I'm in the room.
Yeah. So
I'm not taking or fighting or grabbing. I'm asserting. And I don't think women should see asserting themselves as something strenuous. Every human being who needs to own their place in the world has to assert themselves at some point. Okay. So for us women, asserting ourselves in a room. So I guess let me just say this. The fight is with the misogynist, whether they be male or female, because I do know some women really exhibit misogynistic traits. The fight is with the misogynist. For me, I will only assert myself. Go fight with your demons.
Yeah. Okay. So let's bring this conversation back to hair for a second. So there are a few words that you've used that I feel like, on the flip side, are very. It's almost like I'm beginning to draw a line or to draw a connection between the topics that we've brought on the podcast, and finding that being a lockhead, some of the experiences you have are shared with any group of people that are seemingly oppressed. Let me put it that way. You said you're not the offending party. You are why people threatened, and basically being assertive and not seeing, and assertiveness is not a threat. I feel like when you come back to the hair, I meet people who want the hair, who love the hair, but they are threatened by society. Sometimes it's not even by society, they're just threatened by your mind because you don't even know why you don't want to do it, because you feel you'll be treated a certain way. And you almost feel like you would offend people, you offend your church, you offend your pastor, you offend your future husband that you don't know who, that would prefer you to supposedly wear a weave on your wedding day. So I'm just beginning to see like a link because I received an interesting comment where someone was trying to have a discussion of why am I relating locks to aging. Obviously, the person doesn't live in Nigeria, and I could sense a tone of offense that why you trying to politicize this. And I'm like, well, in my own environment, this is something that we face. People seem threatened by your hair. And for me, who even has longer hair now, it's interesting because what happens is they meet you, they think your hair is extensions, and then you're cool. But immediately you say, it is my natural hair. It means you are a feminist, you are hard, you probably are on some sort of narcotics or drugs or weed smoking person. You would not be obedient in your husband's house. You will not be able to cook and clean. You are not the things that you expected. You're just a bad person. So I've said all these things, and I just want to understand what your experience is like being a lockhead and having that attitude and being a feminist at the same time. Do you see yourself constantly trying to fight to assert yourself from a hair perspective as well, and in just, living your daily life?
Well, when I was in school, I had to, because when you enter into some offices, you know how Nigerian higher education is. You enter into some offices and they're like, what kind of hairstyle is this, and all kinds of ridiculousness. And I knew, and even then, and let me also say that I'm a very self-aware person. I know who I am, and I'm also very aware of my environment. I know when the problem is not me, but it's you. And I know when I have to bend because you're in a position of authority that I'm not in, and I need you to make a stamp or a statement in my life. And what I learned much later in life, a friend would advise me, he would say, pick the battles you can win. It may seem like a cop-out, but it's not. Sometimes if I'm going to walk into the admin office of some raggedy woman or man in a dusty office in a Nigerian institution that I know I only need for that first part of my life, few years after that, I am so far behind what I studied in school that I really don't know why I went through that process, right? I mean, what I studied in school is so far behind me. I meant to say, I'm so far ahead of it that I don't even know why I had to bend for some scraggly man in an office. But then I'll tie my hair sometimes for that reason, or sometimes I'll find myself, hiding my locks, not to, because I don't want that to confront that energy. But as I left school, first of all, when you're in radio as a female in this country, there's a whole lot of misogyny and gender bias that goes in there. That, I mean, it used to be a very male world. I think it still is in many degrees. So you would always be taken on seriously. So I was in entertainment radio for just 2 years, and I moved straight from there to talk radio, which means I'm now talking serious, important things, and I'm being intelligent. So when they see my picture, they see a video of me in the studio, and they go, "Oh, she has dada." What does that mean? Like if my hair is in locks, I have suddenly knotted every wire in my brain, and I can't think intelligently, And so that happened, and I think for me to fight that was, as I said before, asserting myself. I asserted myself in the fiercest of ways. Sometimes I did it with so much fierce passion that you had to get out of my way. Sometimes I did it with conversation. It all depends on what ammunition I needed at the time, and then I'll deploy it. But this is what I know. For every movement in the world, in life, women have defined themselves in many ways. There was feminism in the civil rights fight. If it meant wearing their afro black and proud and not straightening it, to say look at me, I'm owning every aspect of my blackness, and I'm a woman. They did it. If it meant straightening the hair but speaking out as loud as possible for people to know that you know what you represent, even though it might seem as if you look differently, women have done it. Now, even if we're going away from African women and looking to the idea of women wearing trousers and getting into the labor force, the wars, and fighting to own their space in workforce, even if we want to looking at it through all different phases and of feminism that have ever existed, down till today, we've always been defined by our hair, our clothing, this color of our skin. There's always something to accompany it. And right now, Ade, join me in this now. Now it's actually about your sexuality is defined by your locks now. You know that, right? It's either men think, wow, this person is going to be some kind of vixen and fierceness in bed. Oh my goodness, imagine grabbing on those locks. Men have told me to my face, grabbing on my locks in bed. I'm not opposed to grabbing my locks in bed, but what makes you think you qualify as a person to grab my locks in bed? And then you find other people who would be, so they sexualize you, because not just that you have locks, you now have really long ones. So they think about all things, and then they project their fantasies on you for your locks. And it could be any man of any race, of anything. How many of these battles are we going to fight? I told a friend of mine, and I said, if you consider me a fantasy, you probably are my fantasy. So I might not judge you on fantasizing about me if you are that. And there's a word that is escaping me now, and I don't know why it's escaping me. Something about being a fetish. And she says, what if you're just a fetish to them because maybe of your hair or your race or anything? And I said, and that's fine. What makes you think he's not a fetish to me? So I have to allow myself think of a healthy boundary and a healthy space. As I said, I'm a very self-aware person, and when I'm aware of who you are and what you are to me, I then pick the battles I can fight. We can't fight every Nigerian person that thinks. Do you know, when I was going on television, someone asked my boss at the time a question that, will Nelly be on TV with her hair, like with her locks? Will locks be allowed on TV? And I am so grateful to my boss at the time, Becky. Becky says, absolutely. My mom wears locks. What has that got to do with anything? We had to even have a program around it, women and their hair. What statement our hair makes. So I might not be the proudest, I might not be the most political lockhead, because wearing locks on me was not a political statement. It wasn't a statement of feminism or my blackness or any of those things. It was a hair. I just had to wear my hair differently and manage it better, right? But if I find myself in a room where I had to assert myself beyond the locks, I would have to, because unfortunately we're still in a generation and a world where we still have to fight those stupid battles. We still have to fight them.
Yeah. You'll be surprised how much time, or maybe not, because you're probably used to talk radio, how much time we've already spent going back and forth. But I've picked up a few things, some very important that I think would stick with me. But picking from what you just said, is that hair can be a statement. It could be a political statement for some people, and for some others, it's not. Like you, I personally did not have the consciousness of what my hair was supposed to mean when I decided to get it. I only started my hair for convenience, really. I was very busy in my work schedule at the time, and I thought that locking my hair was going to be easy. Only to get locks, and a year in, I'm realizing that, it's a black thing.
Remember
it's a statement.
videos we used to watch.
Yeah. And thinking all these things about the hair. But I'm really glad as to how because the essence of this, as many may not realize, is that I'm actually trying to delabel the locks. Like, we shouldn't have labels to have locks. It is your hair. You can't have a label for the color of your skin to say you're half yellow, half black, too black, not black. You are just who you are. And so it doesn't really matter what you decide to be. If you're a good person, if you're a bad person, if you're spiritual, non-spiritual, or a feminist or misogynist, your hair, first of all, is like the statement that you should be able to use in making.
Can I just add, Ade, I know we're rounding up soon, that the beauty of what you're doing is also people get to see that the black woman's hair and how she wears her hair is not just a racial thing. You can be stereotyped and discriminated, by your hair, even in a black world, even in the blackest country in the world, Nigeria, even here, you could be, people could look at you and decide on your future, decide on your peace and happiness, decide on your opportunities just by your hair. They could lock doors and close rooms to you because of your hair. So I guess what I'm going to ask you as you're rounding up this podcast is...
I don't know why you're rounding up for me. I'm still here for a few minutes.
Okay. Well, you sounded like you were rounding up, so I was like, oh my God, I have started. My long-windedness has filled up the room.
No, please go ahead. What are you going to ask me?
I was going to ask you, what do we then do? For me, I think do nothing, just exist. If someone comes at you, you assert yourself. But that's what I think. But what do you think we do when the stereotype and the discrimination it can happen anywhere, from black person, kinky hair to kinky hair, can discriminate, against one another. So what do we do?
That's an awesome question. I would tell you, I don't know what we should do, but I'll tell you what I do. The first thing I do is that I do realize that my hair choice falls under a segment of people who are largely discriminated by, especially in Nigeria. And my first offense and defense, or my first defense to that, is that I do not discriminate other people's hair choices, because if you're doing the same thing you don't want to be done to you. Hair is a choice. If you want to wear it straight, curly, locked, whatever the case may be. So first of all, I do not discriminate, because you don't know the reasons why people are doing, why they want what they are doing, or you're not responsible for when they come into the consciousness of when they should change their minds about maybe their hair choice. So first of all is to treat everyone equally and see people for people. So if you approach me, I'm not going to judge you and say, oh, look at this girl with false eyelashes and blonde hair, she must be a blonde Barbie doll idiot girl. No, that person would have so much value that you can benefit from. So I'm genuine about my acceptance to people and their choices. That is the first thing. The second thing I personally do is that with this platform that I have been fortunate to grow and meet so many amazing people, I never give negativity a voice on this platform. So every now and then you hear like maybe some coach cut off a boy's locks on the courts, on the basketball court when he was playing, and internet basically goes wild. Everybody is talking about it, and of course standing up for it and all of that. But what happens is that when I post that on my page, I would have given it some power and some voice for it to continue. So I am very, very conscious. I would not repeat any negative thing anybody says about people with locks or people with natural hair. I would not, add any fuel to that sort of, you understand what I mean? So these are the things that I do, because I'm very careful. The things you say in life now stay forever. This podcast is probably going to be available long after we are gone. So, you have to be very careful about what you say and what you give power to. So my own silence, and I'm not confrontational by attitude, so just following my personality, I would rather elevate the voices that kind of that sound reasonable, that show reason to the topic that we're trying to address, because I'm seeing in the episodes that we have featured at this point, you're talking about locks and kids, you're talking about locks and aging, you're talking about locks and the LGBT community, you're talking about it in the corporate world, and you're just seeing people who are being disenfranchised, you're seeing people who are being discriminated against, stereotyped, and all of these people are different people, different personalities, different attitudes. If you can just stop and see them for who they are, life would just be such a much better place, as opposed to saying, oh, it is my Christian sister, it is my Igbo sister, it is my locked sister. All of those things, just we are really one race, and that's the human race. And once we can get past that, I feel like things will be better. So I am one of the optimistic people that doesn't like to fight and would give fuel and fire and flame and put some oxygen to whatever good that there is out there. So that is how I am hoping to change the world. I don't think it is the most efficient way, but that's my way. So, and I feel like anybody out there who has their own attitude, their own personality, if your own is to fight and carry the placard and, take the gun and stand up for yourself, please, by all means, do what you need to do and what conforms with your heart to do. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. I was actually going to add that I don't think there's an efficient way. If there was, there will be one size fits all to fix humanity's problems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's an efficient way, but there can be. I was going to say, there can be numerous ways in which we can all meet. In the middle, where we can all find solution to what happens. Absolutely. But I would not choose anything else. I love my hair. I keep telling myself, oh, one day, I'll take it out, but I don't know when. I probably would get to my 60s wearing this hair. I love my hair. I love my choices. In fact, I'm beginning to enjoy you underestimating me, and then let me surprise you. I used to say that I am afraid of people seeing how much of me I have to offer, because I fear that it will overwhelm me. The world might love it, and by world I mean the small part of the world I occupy. I might never be famous. I might love it.
No, I think you're already famous. I think you are famous. I think you have a fantastic story. I do know that you've been through a lot of personal battles career-wise, and this has been mostly because of the voice that you have because of your voice, and the things that you have done. I think you are amazing, intelligent. Like, if I keep going, people will think I'm coming on to you on the podcast right now. but
yeah, we go there for a minute and just come on to me for like 10 seconds.
Basically, I think that, your story is one that needs to be heard. I'm just going to plug this in for anybody who is listening and hasn't seen Nelly's TED Talk yet. It's titled The Distant Reality of Feminism and Gender Equality. And I watched that podcast just saying, I think you were able to articulate things that I felt that I couldn't put a voice to or couldn't give words to. So I feel like, in our own little ways, we are trying to make the world a better place for the upcoming generations. And yes, so the conversation is still going on, by the way. So with this 12 years going on 13-year-old locks that you have, how do you maintain them? And how do you cope? Like, it's a lot of hair, I do know, because your hair is like twice the thickness of mine in the first place. So if my hair is heavy, I can't even just imagine how much heavier yours is. How do you maintain it, and how does it make you feel? And what does taking it on for another 30, 40 years, what does that mean to you?
First, asking me how I keep my hair, like you don't know. Don't you know how I keep my hair? Like, I do it right there in Locitude. But you know my hair journey a lot longer, a lot older than most people do. I started to wear locks the wrong way. In essence, I found some boys that would lock it, they would put all kinds of stuff. There's nothing that hasn't gone in this hair: coffee, toothpaste, all kinds of stuff in the early days, right? And then I went them all out. I met what's his name again? Then I met him, and I introduced him to you. No, not Jatu.
No, Olisa.
The one who won the Olisa, yes, who won the competition you organized. Yeah. Now, but before I met him, then I discovered that I could look up locks on YouTube, styles. At first, it was just the styles I was curious about, because I had always styled my hair myself. If I go to Olisa's salon, I tell him exactly what I want. I still do that in Locitude too. So
you've made us do some crazy things.
As the good thing is, the friend of mine who asked me to wear locks, he's Trinidadian. So that first, actually messing up my hair happened in a 6 months, 1 year window in the start of it. I washed it all off and practically started my locks again without any of those silly interferences. But he came back with a product. It was just a normal natural hair product, Miss Jessie's, just normal conditioners. That's when I learned the trick. To keep your locks as you would keep your natural hair. You don't need all those jazz, which is what Locitude does. Locitude simplifies the hair products to the bare minimum of oils and conditioners, and keep your hair as you would. You've always wondered, you've always asked me that question, how heavy is your hair? My hair doesn't feel heavy. Maybe because I've worn it for long, or because I keep my hair product free. Just natural conditioners and oils, product free. And then I don't lock my hair often, and and the reason is, I always say, if I was Locitude's only customer, I probably would have shut down. And
we love all our customers, even the one time a year customers. We love all of you equally.
One time a year customers, yeah. Because I don't like the roots being thin. When it's thin, for me, it hurts, because my hair is kinky, but it's tender, and my scalp is tender. So when it's this is what Roger knows very well. So when it's thin, it pulls at my roots. So I have to let the roots grow and thicken. So when I lock it again, it's thick. Reasons I have it is because keep your products simple, natural oils, and wash your hair often, and just keep it conditioned and moisturized, honestly. And ever since that, I really do love my hair. I don't know, I do. I love my locks. I love my hair. I like the seamlessness of it. And when it's about to drive me nuts, I'm back in Locitude and we do it again. So, yeah, I do. I do love it. It's simple for me to keep. I don't know the struggles other people have. But for me, it's pretty easy.
Yeah. This has been a very interesting conversation. I wish that it could go on forever. I think I have one last question, but before I say that, let me just recap on some of the things we've said, or maybe more than one last question. I don't know if you want to go here, and if you don't want to, it's fine. I do know that in your career so far, you have been outspoken and opinionated, and the work I do know of you is the work that you did on talk radio. I personally kind of know that I'm not really sure exactly what exactly happened, but the fallout of talk radio from like a daily show for you wasn't necessarily pleasant. And why I'm bringing this up is because, of course, I did go on Google before we start this interview, and I noticed that for all the work you've done, your online footprint is a little bit too small. It's not a little bit too small. It's like disappeared. I'm like, no, I know Nelly. She's done so much. I should be able to find more of her. And it seems like somebody went there and erased this. Is this still linked to a woman not having a voice, or is this just really work politics?
I don't know, really. Okay. I think for me, it's been a combination of. Okay, let me answer it this way. From the online footprint, I would say it's the fault goes both ways. I'm partially to blame because I have never really tapped into the power of social media or the internet for myself. I've always wanted to be a broadcaster who speaks to people who can't afford to listen to what I have to say. And I've always felt the radio was the cheapest medium, still is, because of how poor Nigeria is. But my mates have always invested in uploading their work personally. I've always left it for the media company I was working for to do it. What happens now is when you're no longer with that big company and they have no use for you, for your voice or your talent, they have every right to scrub that all off, and that's probably what happened. Because until you mentioned it, I have never really Googled my radio life. If you Google me now, you probably find my work on fact checking and writing and maybe some TV, but you would really not find my radio, which is the sweetest part of me. I hold it so precious. I loved my days on talk radio. I'm working towards getting back to it. So not having that there, and you were the one who brought it to my notice. So I think for me, it's also because I'm a woman and I talk in the way people don't like women to speak, right? And I do it unapologetically. I don't regret it. And that's not because I'm stubborn, it's because I really regret. I told you, I know who I am. I think through, before I do a thing, I most likely have known I'm going to do it, right? So it didn't end well with Nigeria Info, but I don't think it's something either of us still hold to mind. I am of no value to them right now. So yeah, so if there's nothing of record there, fair enough. I just have to learn from those lessons where I am no longer leaving my intellectual work dependent on whichever media broadcaster organization, however we choose to call them, that I'm affiliated with. I have to be active in taking some of my content and positioning it for myself, so that when time comes, like you did, someone needs to find me, you can find it through my active and intentional advertisement, as opposed to the radio station. Right now they have strong women who are speaking clearly and bluntly. They don't need my voice anymore. We were the pioneers. It wasn't just me. We're the pioneers of women plainly and bluntly on radio, and we left space for other women to do that as well. So they have that window filled. If they don't need my work to do that, that's fine. But it's taught me a lesson. I'm not going to stop being me. I just told you, and you're the first person I've said it to out loud, that I'm afraid of being the absolute. I'm afraid of the maximum of my potential. I think it could overwhelm me, the maximum of my potential. It scares me. So sometimes I hold myself back. I don't know if that happens to you, but I hold myself back not to achieve the maximum of what I can be, because it intimidates me and it scares me, what I know I have the potential to be. But what I'm trying to learn every day is step out of my comfort zone, which is use the internet, use social media, try and put out my content myself. So hopefully in a space of a year or two, this deficit will probably have been met.
I'm looking forward to seeing you back on air, wherever you are. I think we've all learned the lessons, and I think I'm also learning the lesson, even though I've independently done most of my stuff. But I can imagine I would be so pained if I did not have access to many things that I've done so far in the past few years. So I guess we learned the lessons. But most importantly, in wrapping this up finally, I would say that first we do understand that feminism is the ability to exist. And what that means is that your ability to actually exist. And I think I prefer that definition to solely gender equality, because when you just say gender equality, it becomes like a competition. You're trying to be equal to somebody else, but the ability to exist is being able to exist as your own human. So I really love that definition, and if there's anything I've taken from this conversation, that's one of it. You've also talked about being who you are, and we've talked about hair being a statement, and at the same time not being a statement, depending on the individual and how you choose to wear it. We've also
we're so afraid that we won't talk about hair, don't you see?
Sorry?
You were worried we won't talk about hair, but don't you see? We ended up doing it.
We did, and all of this is linked back to the hair. And I was saying that that we should pick the battles we can win. That's one that I think that I would hold dear to my heart as well. And I think most of all is being assertive, especially for people like me out there who shy away from confrontation and conflict. It's one thing to shy away from confrontation and conflict, but you can always be assertive of who you are, what you want to do, what the outcome is. I really feel like I'm a quiet, assertive person, and I've really been assertive, and I realize that that's what it is, and I'm going to apply that to other areas of my life where I am failing. So at this point, I feel like, Nelly, thanks for attending your second TED Talk or TED discussion with me. It's really been an honor. And do you have any last words for our audience?
Oh no. Oh no, I don't. I think everything has been said. I don't have, and I don't like last words actually, because no last words. Okay. Absolutely none.
All right, I would take that.
Yeah.
But I would say assertiveness, it's a thing, and in choosing to have locks, I think you can lean to all of these things. It is your ability to exist. It is who you want to be. You can decide for it to be a statement or not be a statement. And, pick those battles that you can win and just be assertive. And I think if you're assertive, you would win all the battles that come your way, So that's it. It's been interesting. It's been painful in some ways, having to talk about things that you feel as a woman, and how society, especially in our parts of the world, does not necessarily even recognize, or just ignores you. Sometimes it makes you feel like you're just this mad black woman shouting for what you don't even understand. Just keep quiet, let the men take over. So I would be assertive on my ability to exist henceforth. And I hope that if Locs is in anybody's journey out there, please be assertive of it and, go with it. Thanks again, Nelly. And I guess we will continue these conversations offline.
Thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to working with you in future. I think we have a ton of projects we can do together.
Absolutely.
So I'm putting it out there.
Absolutely. I think our stars will definitely align work-wise, because we've been talking about it. I know we all need to. I know we need certain things to be in tune before it happens. So when the right moment comes, the music will play. I believe it. It will.
So please, absolutely. Everyone out there, watch out. We're releasing our album very soon. All right then. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye. Take care of yourself, and thank you for having me.
Yeah. For someone who doesn't like confrontation, that was definitely a conversation that looked a couple of issues right in the face. Assertiveness will become part of my personal conscious efforts to continue self-development, and I am excited about my newfound definition to feminism: the ability to exist, the ability to be, as it sits very well with my ethos. This series has come very far, as we are now 10 episodes in. We have 2 more to go before we round up the season. And in our next episode, we'll be talking to a few brothers with locks, or more like a few brothers who have had locks at some point in their life. They will be bringing their individual perspective to the conversation, and also a perspective from a different side of the world. I'm not sure what we're going to call this episode yet. Locked brothers, brother locks, brothers with locks. But whichever way, it's one you definitely want to look forward to. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Talking Locs podcast with Locitude. It has been such a pleasure being your host. My name again is Adi Balogun, and thanks to our producer, Savage Media. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at Locitude, Locitude, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And for more interesting podcast episodes on Everyday People with Locks, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We are currently on Google, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. And don't forget to keep it locked in an attitude. Bye.